Regions are the new principalities, as they call them. Regions are where all the action is on the economy. Whether you go to Kuala Lumpur, where I've been recently, or to Istanbul, it's all about the region. You got guys like Michael Gallis and these other people in the Urban Land Institute all talking about the need for regional focus as the new economic principality. That's where the action is. But of course, the reality is that regions are made up of places. And even though the economy operates lots of times with employers that don't really care where the region line is, where the jurisdictional line is, employees that don't care if they cross a jurisdictional line, everybody still needs services. They need work, they need security, they need sense of place that comes from sometimes very neighborhood-focused kinds of areas. And to tie in the need to be international in a regional sense, and the need to provide very real things on local sense is one of the big things that I saw next door. And even if you look at the 4 C's, by the way, I was thinking about the 4 C's, you're missing command and control. Which makes, let's face it, command and control would make regionalism a lot easier. It wouldn't be messy, like making sausage. It would be simple. The socialized capitalism places around the world. If you go to Italy, they just tell all the people that they're supposed to be in a place making fabric. Okay, you're still free enterprise, but you go there to make the fabric. If you're in China, there's socialized capitalism. Here, we've got to do it the hard way. We've got to do it where we have to make cooperation happen, and I've been so impressed with what's been going on here. And one of the things that is key in this connection between the local and the larger and the regional focus is that in today's world, the whole has to be bigger than the sum of the parts. And with what you've done here over the last 2 years, but beyond, is to make this whole of Central Florida bigger than the sum of the parts in the ways that you approach problem solving. Some of these problems are huge. You couldn't possibly handle land use issues, transportation issues, immigration issues, education issues, healthcare issues. You couldn't possibly handle them at the local level, no matter how big your municipality is in comparison to the other municipalities. And the regional is the only way to focus and attack those things. One of the more powerful motivations right now, though, in this economy and in this setting where the new change in things and how this future is going to be, what's the most important motivation for thinking regionally right now? And I got to say that people are talking now a lot about when we move from this economy. And I know this is not easy. This is our place and our time, but it's not easy. It's the sense of where you are. This is what we've got. It's our turn. It's our time. And we've got to do it. But it's not easy. And this reality that we're facing, and for some of you this could be a little bit of a jarring moment, when the economy comes back, it's not going to all come back the same way. Even if demand, for instance, in retail and consumers start spending again, that doesn't mean that the retail space footprint is going to be the same. In your town, even if the demand for media, print advertising comes back, it may or may not have to continue to fight issues related to how the publishing business is going to work. Craigslist is still going to be there. There's all these things that are going to change. The banking system, it will come back. There'll be more transactions and more loans and more activity, but it's not going to look like it did. It's not going to look like it did in footprint and investment styles. And so just keeping this in mind, it makes all of us have to be in a more competitive setting. We have to recognize that what makes us special and unique and makes us connected to each other in the world are going to be the things that segment and separate us from the competition. And the competition is huge. It is not going to be automatic that your sector, your community, your way of doing business is going to recover even if the economy does. You have to make it so. What's the future on economic development? What's the future hold for how you're going to do it? Most everybody says that it's no longer all about just the 3 I's. Inventory, incentives, and industry. That's a kind of former model on economic development. And now the new model, as you hear, and this is what you guys are focused on, is people, place, and positioning. And wow, that's what you've already got a head start on. And so it's great stuff, and I think it's going to lead to good things here. I was so impressed, with a lot of the things that are going on. I look, though, and I see around the country, there are places where this regionalism thing, it's incremental regionalism, if you know what I mean. It's not, and nobody somehow wakes up one morning and a switch is flipped and everybody just starts thinking regionally. It's incremental regionalism is what happens. You have successes and they lead to more. You have a handshake and it leads to a memo of understanding. And then the memo of understanding leads to a shared plan. It's not something that just goes like this. If it was, you'd have a nice command and control model and everything would be cool. But if you look around the country, there's places where people think locally and act regionally. I'll give you an example, Santa Ana, California, the second poorest city in America, in the richest county in America. Okay? And here they are sitting there in this town, and they look at the reasons for this. Why can we be, what's our problem? And they recognize that 75% of the jobs require English and 70% of the people don't speak English. And so what does that lead to regionally? This local problem, what does it lead to regionally? Terrible traffic problems. It leads to all kinds of delinquency and crime problems. It leads to all kinds of issues. So the chamber, in a sense, and the business community, the corporate civic community at Santa Ana said, we've got to do this differently. This is our local issue. We've got to approach it regionally. They bring in the Hollywood studios. They bring in the Los Angeles Times on a Learn English program. They've got all these benefactors. They start a community, a business university kind of thing set up at the high school level. So they do whatever they have to do, but they solve the problem regionally while thinking locally. Then you have the places that think regionally and act locally. Northwest Arkansas is a good example. They have this issue in Northwest, that's Walmart, okay? Tyson's Foods, fastest growing, one of the fastest growing regions in the country. They've got a problem. They've got problems with water supply in the future. Is that an issue here sometimes? You try to draw what the watershed is, and you got to deal with the water issue, but guess what? The water issue discussion crosses into 100 localities. And you've got to deal with each of those local concerns along the way. The Salt Lake train, a lot of you have studied the Salt Lake Metro line development, and that's the same thing. They had to think regionally, but then the actions is who's going to get a station? And it was very much. And then there's both people who both think and act regionally, like Denver, with their rail system and how they're designing the rail system and how they're connecting and multimodal discussions all the time, how they do shared revenue on school systems. Lots of things going on that they think regionally and act regionally in Denver. And then in Louisville, where they think regionally and they foster regions, where the Alliance for Regional Stewardship began. And you have the ARS going strong, you have all these regional issues. They even, put that down to now we're going to think regionally across the river and build bridges to tie us better to southern Indiana.